This is Radio Taiwan International. Welcome to the news on Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan. We begin with a look at today's top stories for Friday, September 12th. The U.S. is close to a big deal with Taiwan, according to the U.S. Commerce Secretary. President Lai Ching-te praises non-commissioned officers' loyalty, righteousness, and bravery. And a Dutch author highlights ASML and TSMC's tight bond. But first, today's top story. With anxieties rising over Taiwan's tariff negotiation process, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Cabinet spokesperson Michelle Lee announced a deal that seems close at hand. In July, the Trump administration adjusted Taiwan's reciprocal tariff rate to 20% in lieu of having not yet come to a trade deal. This was in addition to existing Most Favored Nation or MFN rates and anti-dumping or countervailing duties on exports. This stoked fears that Taiwan would be outmatched by economic competitors South Korea and Japan, who either have already or are in the final stages of negotiating a 15% tariff rate. However, in an interview with CNBC on Thursday, Lutnick outlined his meetings with commerce ministers from Taiwan and others. Lutnick hinted a deal was close, saying, quote, "We've got a big deal coming with Taiwan," end quote. Taiwanese companies are bracing for the impact of Trump's tariff plan, especially if the semiconductor industry receives additional tariffs. This despite the fact that Taiwan's trade deficit with the U.S. has reached a record high due to the chip demand for AI. Lee seemed to back up Lutnick's claims, acknowledging negotiations have made substantial progress, pending a final review meeting with the U.S. side. She says due to the impact temporary tariff measures have already had on Taiwanese industries, Taiwan hopes to reach a more reasonable deal soon and is pushing for preferential tariff treatment. She also notes the special assistance budget proposed by the cabinet on Thursday to help alleviate urgent needs for affected industries, workers, and farmers. President Lai Ching-te encouraged the new non-commissioned officers, or NCOs, to become the backbone of the military and take pride in their service as he presided over a ceremony honoring them at the Taoyuan Army Academy on Friday. Lai emphasized that the current international situation is volatile and turmoil in the Taiwan Strait can impact global peace and stability. NCOs serve as an important bridge between officers and enlisted personnel, overseeing daily tasks, training, maintaining discipline, and making sure missions are accomplished. The president noted that the National Armed Forces are always on the front lines helping people in any disaster in Taiwan, fostering an atmosphere in which the military loves the people and the people respect the military. Furthermore, this Veterans Day, both domestic airlines and over 20,000 businesses nationwide are offering military personnel priority boarding and discounts, further demonstrating the fine tradition of unity between the military and the public. The president stated that Taiwan must strengthen its national defense capabilities and economic resilience, moving away from the concentration of industrial investment in China. Furthermore, the expansion of regional authoritarianism is not just a Taiwan issue. It is a common concern for democratic countries in the Indo-Pacific and globally.
At the beginning of my presidency, I proposed the 4 pillars of peace action plan. Peace is priceless, and war has no winners. However, while we have ideals for peace, we cannot harbor illusions. Only peace achieved through strength is true peace. Peace cannot be achieved by ceding sovereignty, nor can peace be achieved simply by a piece of paper.
Lai emphasized that as long as China is willing to engage in dialogue with Taiwan on an equal footing with dignity, we are willing to engage in exchanges and cooperation with China to promote peace and common prosperity. At SEMICON Taiwan 2025, Dutch journalist Marc Hijink, author of Focus, the ASML Way, spotlighted the company's unique partnership with TSMC and its central role in the global chip race. He told reporters that ASML's growth and de-risking strategies mirror the pressures reshaping semiconductors amid U.S.-China trade tensions. ASML, the Dutch maker of the world's most advanced chip lithography tools, sits at the heart of Taiwan's semiconductor rise. Yet in recent years, its trajectory has been altered by the U.S.-China tech conflict. Under U.S. pressure, the Netherlands has blocked EUV export licenses to China since 2019. In January 2024, The Hague revoked some licenses for advanced DUV systems, and later that year, Washington tightened controls further. ASML projects China's share of sales, around 36% in 2024, will fall to about 20% this year. At SEMICON Taiwan on Friday, Hijink appeared at the Netherlands Pavilion to present the newly released Mandarin edition of his book and field questions on ASML's partnerships and geopolitics. He traced ASML's early Taiwan entry through service partner Hermes Epitech to today's embedded service teams inside TSMC fabs, describing engineers who treat tools as babies and themselves as nurses. TSMC's willingness to adopt ASML's next-generation machines and refine them in production, he said, gave the foundry an edge Intel never embraced, cementing a uniquely symbiotic relationship between the two companies. On the U.S.-China conflict, Hijink noted that ASML's EUV and High-NA systems are strategic enough to attract scrutiny from the U.S. National Security Council, while Dutch officials tied export curbs directly to national security concerns. Looking ahead, he said both ASML and TMC are actively de-risking. TSMC by spreading production across Arizona, Germany, and Japan, and ASML by following its customers, diversifying its supply chain and doubling capacity in the Netherlands, Germany, and the United States. Still, he cautioned that a shortage of skilled talent remains a critical barrier. Asked about competition, Hijink said Chinese toolmakers are progressing in other chip-making steps, but lithography remains far more complex. Throughput and yield still lag, and more learning cycles are needed before Chinese firms can compete. But he echoed NVIDIA's Jensen Huang in warning that cutting China off from semiconductor trades could accelerate these developments.
But the throughput and yield is still not there, and they need to have many learning cycles. Of course, chip manufacturers, they want the best devices, they want the highest throughput because they want economically viable, compared to what Jensen Huang is saying about the H20. If we don't deliver to China, Huawei is going to pick up and create competition for us there. It might eventually also proliferate, spread it across the world, and undermine our margins.
Hijink concluded that tariff turmoil mainly hurts predictability, delaying non-AI investments, while ASML is bracing for a strong rebound once uncertainty clears. TSMC will establish a semiconductor supply chain zone at the Pingdong Science Park, joining with partners to create an ecosystem for developing materials, equipment, and packaging technologies needed for next-generation semiconductors. TSMC Operations and Facility Vice President Dr. Arthur Zhuang said Thursday at the High-Tech Facility International Forum that the National Science and Technology Council's Southern Taiwan Science Park Administration has begun planning. The administration said it'll be Taiwan's first dedicated semiconductor supply chain zone, with TSMC leading overall planning. 10 companies have already pledged to join, with construction set to begin in the second half of next year and completion targeted for the second quarter of 2027. Cloud Express Edge Lab Vice President Nobunaga Chai said Friday that as advanced processes evolve, each generational leap can change materials, equipment, and even system architecture, increasing complexity. The new zone, he said, will not only cluster suppliers, but also transform their role. Instead of merely selling products, they can collaborate with TSMC on research and development for next-generation processes.
They are not merely playing the role of a supplier, but becoming part of an ecosystem, working together on R&D, creating the next generation of technologies and products, whether in wafer foundry or IC, integrated circuit packaging. When TSMC moves into the next generation of technology, they will already be TSMC's suppliers, and TSMC can then leverage the advantages of these new technologies to do business with other world-class semiconductor IC design companies, integrated device manufacturers, and system firms.
Chai cautioned, however, that smaller suppliers could face hurdles in overseas expansion, from financial pressures to differences in corporate culture. The most passionate among us are the youth, especially when it comes to taking action to save our planet.
New Taipei City is blessed with green mountains and beautiful waters, with many attractions even internationally famous. To preserve this environment, more young people are taking up the baton and participating in actionable sustainability. The 2025 New Taipei International Youth Climate Action Forum, held in Banqiao on Thursday, brought together young leaders and experts from South Korea, Japan, Canada, the United States, and other countries to exchange ideas and discuss the challenge of climate change. New Taipei City Mayor Ho Yo-ii also attended and awarded the 4 winning teams of the event's creative competition. First place went to Kangqiao International School's Xiaoguang campus for their recycled soap project. The students explained how they collected expired cooking oil from local homes to craft into soap, helping everyone turn waste into treasure. The mayor detailed plans to build the New Taipei City government's second administrative center, which also targets carbon neutrality. He also said Bali will be designated as a carbon neutrality demonstration zone to show how New Taipei City is taking a comprehensive approach from urban planning and youth initiatives to aligning with international trends. He stated that in the face of extreme climate challenges, New Taipei City hopes that more young people will unleash their creativity and be brave enough to practice the spirit of sustainability. Michelle Chang and Amanda Stevens for RTI News.
Thanks for joining me for the news. I'm Michelle Chang. Stay tuned for another 50 minutes of English language features brought to you by Radio Taiwan International.